Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. This is Professor Aminah Al-Deen for Critical Talk, which is a production of Muslim Network TV. I have the honor, and it truly is an honor because she does so many things, of talking with Dr. Ingrid Mattson, who is a professor sometimes, a writer sometimes, an inspirer of wonderful projects at other times. Um, Living in Canada, gardening, and tasting her husband's wonderful food.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's it. He's making it right now.
And tell him I said I'm waiting. This is such an honor, and I have so many things to speak with you about.
Mm.
The first is the Hurma Project, which I have known about for a couple of years, but I want to take some time and shut my mouth and let you tell us about this project because it is an exceptionally important undertaking.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Amina. It's an honor and a blessing to be with you again. Thank you for the invitation, your hospitality, and salam alaikum to everyone who's watching and listening. Yeah, I think we should start with the term hurma, which is such a beautiful, beautiful term
It
in Islam,
is. Oh my God.
isn't it? Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's and Muslims really love to go to the linguistic roots of things. So if the term sounds familiar, it is from the same root as haram, which is the sacred place where the Kaaba is, and the haram in Medina, the sacred place of the mosque of the Blessed Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And hurma has the same implication. Hurma means sacred inviolability of the human person. And that means that God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has created us with an inviolability, meaning that we have the right to be protected from harm. Okay? And this is God given. This is something that no one can overturn. And in fact, the blessed prophet compared the hurma of the believer, of the human being, to the hurma, or the sacrality of those holy sites that we go to for Hajj and Umrah and for pilgrimage, and to visit his own place, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is really profound if we think of it, that that the individual human being, our own sacrality, is on the level of these sacred sites that have been deemed to have that status by God. And so this is what we're really uplifting. We're uplifting this aspect because very often when we talk about Muslims and Islam, we talk about it, I think, in very general ways that are not grounded in the human beings who practice this religion. So we say things like, oh, I'm going to defend Islam. Islam actually needs no defense. Islam is the religion that Allah has established for us. This is Allah's religion to protect. What we do need to protect is are each other as individuals. We need to protect our community. We need to protect our values as we live them. And in particular, what we're trying to uplift here is the hurma of every person who enters our Muslim spaces to be free from harm and exploitation or a violation of trust. And in particular, in our Muslim spaces where there are some people with some, more authority, more status, more power, whether those are teachers, imams, coaches, um, youth workers, sheikhs, sheikhas, whoever they are, who are entrusted with the care and the welfare of the community, we really need to make sure that those people are not violating the hurma of the people who have put themselves in their care, because that is a very damaging harm that can happen. So when that trust is broken, when harm is committed by the people who have this sacred trust over others, the impact on people can be lifelong. It can negatively affect not only their relationship with the community, but even their relationship with the religion itself, and even their ability to really connect in their prayers and their practice with their creator.
Well, I want to go back for just a moment, and um, because that is, what do I want to say? That is a notion that makes one think about many things. While we're on, and I hate to think about the need to protect
Mm,
when those in religious authority should have a need to restrain themselves in all the ways that
mm,
one needs to restrain themselves. But and I want to put up, if you would, Miriam, the connection to the Hurma Project online so that folk can go. They've done a wonderful job with the website, but they're also, I think Rennie had put up a case study, which is very insightful, and the list of things culturally in Arab culture, but I would wager that they're in almost every culture, um, that prevent people from reporting abuse, but also not knowing what abuse is,
mm,
and that becomes um, extremely important. You talked about inviolability, and I know that folk know, no touchy, but I don't know that they know about inviolate.
mm, mm.
So if you would spend a moment, because there are many ways that you can breach that.
Yeah.
So if you would spend a moment just talking about that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, certainly. And some people, okay, let's think about some particular situations. One situation that we hear about, for example, is say there's a religious leader, and people are going to that religious leader to learn about their religion. So they're coming into that space for that reason.
Mm,
And they're offering, in that way they're acknowledging that here's a person who has more knowledge than I do about the religion. I'm coming to this person because they necessarily know some things that I don't know, and those things are important to me. They are valuable to me because I want to grow in my faith. I want to grow in my spiritual development, and I'm willing to sacrifice for that. I'm willing to sacrifice my time. I'm willing to wake up early for an early morning halaqah. I'm willing to go to a retreat on my vacation. So rather than going sitting on the beach, I'm going to go sit in a conference room for 3 days. I'm going to
mm,
pay money to travel to that place. So I'm willing to give up things to get to that point. Now, um, part of this then relationship between teacher and students is that the teacher is then welcoming to me into the space for the purpose of learning and not anything else. But because of this power dynamic, because I want to, I admit I need to learn more and I'm willing to give things up, there's a certain vulnerability there. Because what if this teacher now says, well, you're going to have to sacrifice other things. You're going to have to contribute money for this purpose. Now, maybe this is a purpose that is related to this educational setting, but maybe it isn't. Maybe I wasn't told this ahead of time, and now I'm being put in a situation where I'm being asked to give more than I'm able to. Or maybe they're saying now you have to cut off ties with anyone else in your life who might instruct you, might give you some advice related to your faith, or even things like your marriage or choices. Suddenly, this teacher is asking me to give up other things, and I'm confused. I didn't think these were things, I didn't think I had to cut off my relationship with my parents or my local imam or others in my life who have given me sound advice to get to this point. But now this teacher, who's respected, is telling me I have to cut myself off from those people. And so there's a confusion. Why do I have to do that? I'm not sure. After all, this is the person who knows. What if this person, or let's say another scenario, I'm a person who's having some problems, say, in my life, maybe a woman who has been divorced, or she's single, she isn't married, and she's coming because she's feeling pressure from her family to be involved in a certain kind of marriage that she knows is not really suitable for her. So she goes for counseling. She wants to understand Islamically what are her rights when it comes to her parents. What are her responsibilities? Does she have to listen to her parents if they're insisting she marries this person who's not who she understands is not suitable for her? What if in that relationship, and here, like, she's exposing all sorts of vulnerability, what if that imam or that scholar, that person who's counseling her says, look, I have a solution to your problem. Why don't you marry me? Now, we know that in any other professional setting, a therapeutic setting, physician, patient, teacher, I mean, this would be a complete violation of professional ethics,
Exactly.
right? They would lose their license. And people, the problem is that some people say, well, she could just say no. But that is not really the case, because in that situation, she is in a state of vulnerability, of confusion. She's come for one thing. Now she's being, encouraged to do something else, which is treat this person, accept that. Or even if she rejects it, is she going to feel comfortable going for advice? No, she might leave that. And now she's lost the opportunity to get some support and counseling from the local religious leader. There might not be anyone else.
Yeah.
So these are really abuses of trust, violation of the professional ethics, or of the ethics of the teacher-student relationship. So this idea of proper boundaries, of professionalism, of understanding the power dynamic in these situations is so critical.
Well, even though some of that may sound far fetched, it really isn't. During
Mm,
the pandemic, she's a resident in Chicago at University of Chicago in psychiatry. Her best friend said, because everybody was searching for remedies, and she said, "Oh, but my sheikh has this holy water." And I said, "Oh, she's telling me the story after, and I guess in a way getting my permission to leave this crazy situation." But the other thing happened when the sheikh was saying, "Well, you have to drink this holy water, but you have to buy it from me, and you can't consult anybody else." And I said, "Well, what about that? Doesn't sound crazy, doc."
mm, mm,
All of that is great, but still, she needed permission to leave. But then the girlfriend said, "If you stop going to the shack, I can no longer be your friend." I said, "Well, that's all real, real crazy.
mm,
You
mm.
just, you put that to the side, ball it up, and put it in the trash next time you pass." But these situations, and we know that in our community, they have happened um, to the chagrin of a lot, especially women. I'm sure that they will begin to happen with men, but when women have issues that are mainly of a female matter,
Hmm.
they've been trained to go to men. What do
Hmm.
men know about women's bodies and
Hmm.
women's issues? Can you just briefly speak to that, and then we're going to go to a break?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think this really goes back to the problem with a kind of teaching that degrades and demeans the capabilities of people in our community. And this is where I think we have to understand this, that there's some really important spiritual and theological issues at the root of this. I mean, there are structural issues like, are there enough women or people of different backgrounds and cultures who are actually in positions of leadership, so we can have people who understand, like people have a choice, and maybe they want to seek someone who is from their own gender or from their own historical or cultural background or experience. All those things are important. So those are structural issues, but there's also the spiritual and theological issue, which is, what are we teaching about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us as human beings to navigate our way in this world? And I think it's tremendous. There's certain kinds of teaching that will tell people, look, you don't know anything. Most people know nothing. You are an empty vessel, and if you aren't, you have to completely empty yourself so someone qualified can fill you up with knowledge and guide you, ignorant person, out of your ignorance. I believe that's contrary to the message of the Quran and the message and the teaching of the Prophet Muhammad says. We know that Allah created human beings al fitra. Fitra means we all have a sound spiritual foundation, and yes, we can go away from that in our life, but we have a core that we can go back to. Allah also gave us a mind and a heart, again, that can lead us astray, but also that can help us and guide us. Also, God gave us relationships, not just one relationship, but many: family, community, friends. We should draw upon all of these things that are there to teach us, even nature, watching how nature works and cycles and growth. I mean, there's so many lessons from nature. So we are not just devoid of resources. So I believe at the foundation first is some confidence, like not arrogance, but some well-founded confidence that we are not alone, and that it is, we don't have to just consider ourselves unworthy. No, one of the most beautiful messages of Islam is that there's beauty to be found everywhere in the world, that we expect any place we go in the world for there to be some sound and beautiful practices that we can engage with. We don't see the whole world as a bad place. No, we see the world as a place of beauty and goodness.
Mhm.
There are problems. When there are problems, we correct them, but the foundation is good, and our foundation is good. And so let's start with that and build on our strengths, right? Not uh, so that if a person encounters a teacher or a teaching that begins with tearing down the person, completely undermining their confidence, telling them they have to just disavow every relationship they have, I would venture to say that's probably a cult and not
Yeah.
a true teaching environment.
We're going to take a quick 2 minute break. And what I would like to come back to is how the project is manifesting itself on the ground. Conferences, past ones that you're really excited about, future ones that you're really excited about. We'll be right back. This is Professor Aminah Al-Deen with Critical Talk, a production of Muslim Network TV from Sound Visions, and we will see you in a couple. Thank you. Hello again. Salam alaikum. This is Professor Aminah Al-Deen with Critical Talk, which is a production of Muslim Network TV, which is a production of Sound Visions. This evening, I'm having a wonderful time listening and learning from Dr. Ingrid Mattson, who, as I said before, is a professor extraordinaire and runs the Hurma Project. But she also does a lot of writing, which I'm going to get to before this is over, with her husband cooking in the background, and I am anxious for my meal. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. I'm waiting for you to come and enjoy this food with us.
Yeah, well, Canada does have highways.
Mm.
Mm.
One at least.
Have one at least, huh? So I got a lot of stuff to talk with you about, and I'm going to ask my producer to hold us over because of our initial problems with starting. But I want to know about the conferences, past and future, current, past, future, that you are doing with the project.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for asking about that. Well, and when I say we, I mean, we have a team here. Primarily, it is me and my good friend, Mihad Fahmi, who is a human rights lawyer and a workplace investigator.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah. So she really brings, she's very good at being organized, looking at things closely, and also bringing in her experience from trying to implement some of the guidelines to keeping people safe and also holding people accountable when violations have happened. So we've been at this now for about 5 years. So about 5 years, we've been engaging in research and providing some learning along the way and learning from others. And it may seem like a long time, but I'll tell
Oh,
you,
it's a
yeah,
minute.
I mean the reason we have taken our time is that I spent a lot of years as a Muslim. In my 35 or more years that I've been a Muslim. Um, every once in a while, too often, being approached by someone or a group of people about some violation that happened in a Muslim space, trying to do an intervention at that point and finding that once the damage has been done, it's very difficult to get accountability, and it's also not impossible, but really also difficult to get full healing. So what we want to do is understand, I mean, it seems so obvious that we shouldn't allow exploitation and harm in our communities. The problem is, like, why are we not doing a better job at this? Why have communities not taken this more seriously and put in place the kind of protection that's needed? And when it happens, why is there so much denial? Why is there so much cover up? Why is there so much defensiveness?
But it's the same thing as the Catholic Church.
There's some things that are shared, there's some dynamics that are shared universally, and there are some things that are different. And that's what we wanted to understand. So we've had a major at the beginning, a major gathering and training. Since we've had two major research conferences, we also uh, uh, produced 2 seasons of the Hurma Project podcast, which is available on any podcast app. It's also available on our website, where we are in conversation with experts who can speak to some of these things. So, for example, Rani Awad, who talks to us about what happens when there is um, sexual assault of a person, of a Muslim, by a religious leader, and when there's community denial and cover up, and on the other hand, community support. And that's a really important conversation. We speak with others about healthy boundaries between teachers and students, particularly in the sheikh or sheikha murid situation. We look at the issue of protecting children. You know, all of these have given us great insight into what's happening. And we're able to now draw some conclusions, which we are beginning, and our goal is within the next year. And alhamdulillah, we've hired someone to really manage this project. That by this time next year, inshallah, we will have a manual that will be that will have both the underlying kind of ethical foundation for our work, that will be numerous case studies and applications, right? And then recommendations for future work. So we want to take this handbook and then bring it to community leaders and undertake training, because, you know, frankly, some people just don't know how to respond. Some people think that that by doing a police background check, for example, they've done everything that they need to do to make a community safe. And that's just not the case at all. And the reality is that you can't protect, you can't prevent everything, but you can prevent a lot more than we are doing now. And we certainly can have a better response, and hold people accountable and learn from our mistakes to restructure our Muslim organizations to prevent future violations. We can do much better at this. Our religion is full of resources, actually, but our communities are under-resourced. We are a bit anarchic. Everyone is doing their own individual thing. And then also, we are collectively are living with the consequences of massive state surveillance, Islamophobia, and all of these things make us defensive and sometimes incapable of just looking honestly internally at our own problematic dynamics. And it's not just with, violations of trust or spiritual abuse, but other areas where we're not doing a very good job. And we just have to be mature enough and care about our religion enough and what's done in the name of our religion and who's standing on the minbar preaching in the name of Islam, and care about each other enough to put some effort in this. So we, inshallah, we will be presenting some resources. We already have some there. You've highlighted some of the things on the website, and we will certainly before next year, before the paper comes out, or the handbook comes out, we'll be uploading some papers from our recent research conference. I mean, the one that we had last year, with some really interesting insights into accountability in the Islamic tradition. Papers that I think will be helpful to many people in understanding that this isn't a new thing that we're doing. That traditionally in Islam, everyone was accountable to someone else. And the more power someone had, the more accountable they were. I mean, if you were a sheikh or an imam or a khatib, there was someone who was supervising you. And who was supervising that supervisor? Well, the judge. Anyone could walk into a court and make a complaint, and the judge could bring people in who committed violations. Who held the judge accountable? This is in the political administration, there was something called the Madhalim courts, and this is where the political authorities could hold all of their anyone they appointed to a position, would bring them in and hold them accountable, would investigate, would listen to witnesses, even the person with the least social capital.
Mhm.
And so we just need to have that, to really understand our own history and tradition better, and implement that spirit in our communities.
Well, I think also our ability to move across the world has let some unsavory actors in, where we are not able to vet them, in ways that are meaningful, very much like you're saying. And the community is just trying to huddle together in the masjid for some relief from the outside world. And like in the Eid prayer in New York, where you
Mm,
have a khatib who's a doofus,
mm,
and should have been arrested a long time ago, but leading the prayer, and then everybody screaming, but we don't have the correct vetting things. One of the things I wanted to ask about on this is how uh, is the work of the Hurma Project being taken seriously by counselors, by our nation psychological associations. Um, I have every intention of bringing it to the Institute for Muslim Mental Health, and jamming it down those gentlemen's
mhm.
throats. Um, but it is an aspect that is, I mean, what can I say? The criticality of it with regard to mental health,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, absolutely. And I would say what's interesting to me is that there are certain kinds of people in our community who are always receiving disclosures of abuse.
Yeah,
And these disclosures are coming from not just women, they're coming from men as well. There are
yeah.
men who have experienced not just sexual abuse, but also financial abuse, emotional abuse. I mean, there are a lot of things that have gone on. I've, had men, break down with me because they were they were so attached to their teacher, and then the teacher really mistreated them and cast them out of the community. I mean,
Mhm.
they're so adrift, they're so much in pain. So who are the people who receive disclosures? They are, Muslim therapists, sympathetic Muslim teachers, many of them women,
Mm.
um, who are receiving these disclosures. Muslim chaplains hear about this all the time.
Yes.
Some imams are hearing about it, but it's interesting to see which imams are hearing about it and which are not.
Yeah.
Who are the ones who maybe they don't understand it, or they're not sympathetic, and that could explain some of the gap between the perception gap. Like some people, they don't see it as much of a problem, and I'm afraid it's because there are a lot of people who are not going and talking to them because they've heard them talk about some of these issues before and either dismiss them or minimize them, so they're not hearing about it. The people who we are really having a wonderful partnership with are the Muslim chaplains. So both from the Association of Muslim Chaplains, and the Muslim Endorsement Council, which is an endorsing body for Muslim chaplains in America. Both of these organizations understand this dynamic and the need for a professional ethics
Yeah.
and for safe systems. And they know that because they get it in their education, but also because as Muslim chaplains, they're the kind of people who are constantly receiving disclosures. People feel safe with them and they come and they tell them about what's happening to them. So we have a lot of wonderful conversations. The Association of Muslim Chaplains has been working for a long time on updating its code of conduct, but it's not enough to have a code. You need to be able to hold people accountable to the code,
Exactly.
right? So you can have all the greatest laws on the books, but if no one is holding people accountable to those, then that's not going to be successful. And also, it's not only after the fact, but if you have a code of conduct, you need to also continually train people in it. So for example, in a mosque or Islamic center or any organization, there should be an onboarding of board of directors that would include training about, all their fiduciary responsibilities, including this supervisory role that they have to play. Because frankly, if they don't do it, if the board refuses to take seriously their responsibility to keep people safe in their environment, not only can the institution be sued civilly, but individual board members can be subject to suits of what's called vicarious liability.
Right.
Because they not only as a body, but as individuals must undertake their responsibilities with care and with due diligence. And if they're negligent, they're just on the board and they think, oh, it's great being on the board, but they don't do anything about their staff, really, they could be in serious legal
Right.
trouble.
Well, I'm going to take our wonderful conversation in a little bit of a different
Mhm.
um, direction.
Yeah.
I have been, during Ramadan, I was blasting everybody I could about the study Quran.
Mm.
And I'm excited about it in a number of ways because it means I don't have to pull out 15, 20 books. I can
Mhm.
just look at one. But in the back of the study Quran are a number of articles. And you, my dear, wrote one of them. I, like you, think that it's not that I want to get on that, what do they call that thing? That turntable between the law and ethics, but not enough is said about ethics. Because if you don't have some ethics, then the law can go bonkers, as we see in U.S. society. So I would like for you first to tell us about your work on the study Quran. Can you put up a picture for me, Miriam? I want people to see it again. And I know we don't like thick books, but this is a thick book you must have. Um, the articles in the back are really fascinating. Can we blow that up a little? Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, it's very important. So, can you talk to us a little bit about your article in the Study Quran?
Yeah, I was asked to write an essay that would be it's called How to Read the Quran,
Yep.
which is which is, I mean, it's very sobering to be asked to. It's quite a big task to summarize that. I had written a book called The Story of the Quran: Its History and
Let me
Place in
put up
Muslim
a picture
Life.
of that too, because I got that too.
Yeah. So I learned a lot by writing that book, and that's a book that I wrote really to be able to have a book that covered a lot of the material that I would teach in a course, an introduction or survey to the Quran. But this particular essay, How to Read the Quran, here you have a presentation of so many different approaches to interpretation. For example, this study Quran has not just Sunni and Shiite, not just, sort of Sufi, but other modes of interpreting the Quran that are included. So what can we say about how the Quran should be read? Well, in many ways it comes from your own hermeneutic or your own tradition. But I was looking at it a bit of a different way. I was trying to focus on more when we approach the Quran or really any scripture, what do we have to know about ourselves first, right? So when we start to read, we first have to situate ourselves, understand what that we're not a blank slate, that we've been formed in a society with certain expectations, and
Mhm.
whether we're Muslim or whether we're not Muslim. Some people say, well, this is for non-Muslims because maybe they have, have been shaped by a lot of Islamophobic views. But on the other hand, every Muslim also has a culture, has a background, and it's very difficult, I think, if you've been raised Muslim, not to consider your cultural interpretation of Islam as the right one. It's
Mhm.
just, you may not even have examined it.
Right.
And so to really understand that we're coming with our own cultural and historical background, but we're also coming to it with our own sort of personal history. And this is part of what I believe revelation is for, actually. I mean, why God sends us revelation is so that we can open up our heart and our mind and be able to engage these questions so that we can be better human beings. We can be better when we see messages about how to treat each other, neighbors, nature, whatever it is, that as we're doing that, we're understanding that there are certain things within us that may be resisting those messages or embracing particular interpretations of them over others. And that's really what I think it's all about. It's about, we've been given these spiritual capacities as well as intellectual, emotional, social capacities. And what God wants us to do is to grow in our life. There's
Mhm.
no end point to that growth, but to continue to be in this conversation, revelation through our hearts and our minds and our relationships, and be honest and grow through that interaction.
No, I can. It's one of the um, and all of them, the essays at the end are significant. But this is for especially the African American community. I thought such an important, and the Latino community and the non-Arabic speaking community, to understand about translation, interpretation, and not forgetting about cultural stance. And no, you can't jump up and decide you're going to be Arab tomorrow and then buy
Mm,
all that went into that word choice. All of those things is extremely important. Let me say one more time, get Dr. Mattson's The Quran. I've had it, I've taught it, love it. My students loved it. Then go get a study Quran. And you can, I mean, she's accessible. I mean, she might not answer you within 5 minutes, but
yeah.
she's accessible, and in the art of teaching, she exemplifies.
Mm,
She will answer you as long as it's not crazy. I have
mm,
to put that part in there. Um, I think that we don't do enough with the very few American and Canadian female scholars that we have who bring, it's not that they bring a different perspective,
mm,
they bring a perspective from a perhaps deeper point of view. That's just
mm.
me being biased. You can see that. Um, and before I leave you, because you've been hanging out with me and you were so gracious to squeeze me into your busy schedule, tell us about Bosnia.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm really excited. I'll be heading off to Bosnia next week, inshallah, with Bayan, as I'm a graduate school. They offer various study tours. And so I'll be teaching on this trip, and I'm really excited. Of course, I have a lot to learn as well. I've been to Bosnia before, and it's just a tremendous land. I mean, it's the if you just look at the culture of Bosnia, it's very interesting. It has to have one of the most integrated approaches to culture and nature. I mean, you go to the traditional Bosnian mosques and tekkes and settings, and they're just they don't dominate. They live with the mountains and the valleys.
There you go.
Just tremendous, and that's how we should be. We should be living with rather than dominating. So I
Right.
love that. Of course, there's also the tremendous struggles that the Bosnians have undergone with the genocide that they experienced, and it continues to be a tense political situation. But I find it so inspiring that as they undertake these struggles, I feel with them that there's such a commitment to each other. People have
Mhm.
different points of views, and they live their Islam very differently. They practice their Islam differently. Um, Certainly, there are some, as always happens after a war situation, there are some people who have come in and brought, ideas that maybe are more disruptive of the
Mhm.
harmony of the community, which is unfortunate. But the majority, I find, really are committed to this view that they don't believe in an ideology. They believe in God, and they believe that God has asked us to be in relationship with each other, right? So it's not like this litmus test that
Ah,
that they're setting for everyone.
uh-huh.
It's a real generosity of spirit, and these are our neighbors. This is our family. This is our community.
What are
Um,
you teaching?
So as we go along, we'll be reflecting on what we see, some of the historical examples of, for example, the way Islam has been manifest in that community, how Muslims have memorialized various events, both happy and unhappy.
Mhm.
So much. I'm always, whenever I look at history and culture in different Muslim communities, I'm always brought back to the frame that Dr. Omar Abdullah set for us with his original Nawawi Foundation papers 20 years ago. For example, Islam, the cultural imperative, um,
Mhm.
innovation and creativity in Islam. Those were really informative for me 20 years ago
Right.
when I worked with Dr. Ahmed. And so some of those frames are really important. I went to Bosnia a few years ago with Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad. So I was sort of the secondary teacher, and he was the main teacher through Cambridge Muslim College. And our theme in that trip was the unity and diversity of Islam. So these are some of the themes I think are always important to return to. And I would add to that, because of my work with the Hurma Project, what I've learned from the effects of trauma on the community, the effects of Islamophobia on the community, I'd like to bring in that aspect as well so that we can understand that we have work to do to not be distorted by, as Allah in the Quran says, the hatred of others towards us, right? Like we can't let the hatred of others towards us let us swerve from justice or let us become something we don't want to be. We have to, you know, we have to be careful about that, not just being reactionary. We respond to the events, but we respond, and not just respond, but set our own agenda and our own framework for how we want to be.
Well said, my sister.
Mhm.
I can't thank you enough for taking time out from what I know is an awesome schedule because you were just in Chicago and packing and doing stuff to get ready for Bosnia. I can't tell you how much we appreciate your time. Um, and I do want to say this to the listening audience: pay attention. You know, you've learned a lot of stuff. If anything, start sending in emails to the Hurma Project to say, how can I help? You know, I mean, everybody out there is not researchers or scholars, but there's always something someone can do to assist. to make
Mhm.
the load a little bit lighter. I want to thank you again from my heart.
Mhm.
Dr. Mattson, I hope to see you again soon.
Oh, Dr. Amina, it's an honor to be on your show, and I've learned so much from you, and you've been a great teacher and an example to me over many years.
That's
And
many, many part.
yeah, no, it's good. It's good to be at this point, I think. But thank you so much.
And
May
I will, if you don't mind, I want to dig into ethics. So maybe in a month or so, I
Mhm.
want to have you and Dr. Sachadina and some other would-be ethicists on talking about what we don't know,
Yeah.
what we haven't considered. With that, this is Dr. Aminah Al-Deen for Critical Talk, which is a production of Muslim Network TV, which is a production of Sound Vision. And we will see you next week. Thank you. Salam alaikum.